Okay, so just got to figure out how to. Okay, all right. Mishlei 13:22. And I'm gonna give you a warning here. Okay, I said this warning in the teaser, but like it's even worse than I thought. So this is one of these psukim that looks, um, well, first of all, it looks like a non sequitur, and it and also makes you think like, is this true? But then when I look at the meforshim at the commentaries, they really don't say much. So like we're kind of, which is a problem to have on one of those psukim. So we're gonna have to do some work tonight. Okay, hopefully we'll get good ideas. I'm confident we'll get at least one. Okay, Tov Yanchil b'nei banim v'tzafun l'tzadik chel chote. Okay, and before anyone attempts to translate, um, it is seems to be unanimous that Tov is means a good person, even though it doesn't say the word person there. Okay. As opposed to like I think people could loosely translate is it is good too, but I think the conventional translation is a good person. Okay, so who wants to try translating? Tov yanchil b'nei banim v'tafun l'tzadik chel chote.
A good person
Yep.
will um come to inherit
So
or
opposite.
give
Well,
inheritance to.
yeah. Will bequeath
Yeah,
inheritance.
many sons,
No, b'nei banim.
sons of sons,
Yeah, which we call
grandsons.
grandsons. Yeah. Okay. To we'll just say grandchildren, even though it's sons. It's easier to say grandchildren. Yeah. Okay. And then safun l'tzadik chel chote.
And dessert to a tzaddik, to
Not
a
dessert.
righteous.
In the Seder, we use it for the dessert, but
Yeah,
safun means what does
mm,
safun literally mean? Anyone know?
excess.
Say again?
I'm guessing excess.
Nope.
North? No, it doesn't.
So the origin of the word is related to north, but that's not what it means. Anyone know?
Is it
Okay.
like
Yeah.
from the Seder, like Taf and Baruch?
Yeah, so that's why Isaiah keeps on saying Seder related words, but it means something though that is not related to the Seder.
Is it like covered, like Siboy
Close,
Badvash?
very
Like,
close, very
Like
close.
hide?
Yes, hide. Okay, so but hidden. Okay, and by the way, what's the connection between the word hidden, tsafun, and north tsafon?
Uh, no, I don't
You got
know.
to
The
guess.
north was unexplored.
Yeah, I think it was the north. Like people were generally aware that like you can only go so far north, and like it was. Whereas let's say like in Israel, like we knew what was to the east, and we knew it was to the west, and we know it's to the south, but like north was like the unexplored region. Okay, but hidden, letzadik cheochote.
Hidden to the righteous person is the chamber of a of sin of sinners of a
Okay,
sinner.
so chel is a little difficult to translate. And I'm going to say hidden for the righteous person is the chel chote. So Metzudas Tzion's says chel is osher. Okay, is the wealth of the sinner. Okay, and remember that chote means generally speaking unintentional sinner. Okay, yeah. So this is like kihu hanosin lachal koach lasos chayil, or according to some people, Ashes chayil means the wealthy woman. Okay, which is not the most well-known translation here. Okay, so yeah. So Metzudas Tzion says safun is inyan hastara, means concealed or hidden. Okay, let's just put that in there also. But hidden or concealed. For actually, what? Let's do this. Hidden. Yeah, concealed. Okay, fine. All right. Targum says Hatov Yanchil Gam Espene Banav. So he says the good man will bequeath even to his grandchildren. V'yesh shenitzpan latzadik uruchush harasha. And there are cases in which the wealth of the wicked is hidden away for the tzaddik. Okay, so he changes sinner to Rasha. He adds the word yesh. There are cases in which, again, and so this is one of those psukim that we call a yesh pasuk, where it means that it's not, when you first read a pasuk like this, it sounds like it's saying it happens like as a universal all the time. But Sadigon has this category where, and it's not just Sadigon, but Sadigon calls it like a category where it'll state it as a universal principle, but really it means like many times or sometimes. Okay, so it seems like he's taking that there. And then the Targum, I think the Targum just translates it straight. Gavra Tava Moris Libnei Benohi. A good man, so he does add in the word man. A good man, Moris, his name is Morris. No, Moris means to bequeath. Libnei Benohi to his grandchildren. Umis natar l'tzadika utre dechata'a. And the wealth of the Russia, utre is like Osher, is hidden away for the sinner. Okay, so I'm going to delete this because I think it's the same thing. Okay, now I'm not at home and I forgot to use my art scroll and rehearse, so we had to do substitute translations. Corin says, a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, but the wealth of the sinner is laid up for the just. Okay, laid up sounds like just an archaic way to say like hidden or like concealed or saved. Okay, I'll keep it anyway. Al-Torah says a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, but the wealth of the sinner is stored for the righteous. Okay, that's similar to ours. And an altar says a good man bequeaths to the sons of his sons, and stored for the righteous the wealth of the offender. Okay, offenders. Interesting. Chote. I wonder if we get to the plural. Yeah, Isaiah.
So I'm kind of wondering. This is kind of a translation / question.
Yeah.
But like the Safun lit lot sadik, everyone seems to be taking that as like it's hidden for the sadik to have, but could it also mean hidden from the sadik? Like when
I don't think so.
In English, if we say something's hidden to someone, it doesn't necessarily mean it's hidden for the purpose of.
Well, lamed means for. I mean, it can mean two, but lamed also, like the normal meaning of lamed means for.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go ahead and assume it means it is not that hidden from is not the translation unless we see someone saying it. But so far, none of the translations have said it, and I wouldn't say that either. Okay, questions. Yeah, Isaiah.
So when it says that this good person is going to inherit to his grandchildren, is that saying he should inherit to his grandchildren, or like he'll merit to inherit to his like?
Okay, so let's say what is the okay, the word yanchil, can mean. Actually, let's just put it as a question the way you're saying it. What does I'll say it in transliteration way. Yanchil mean? He will bequeath. He should bequeath. Or did you say a third one also?
I guess I was thinking like he will merit to.
Okay, yeah, right. Or he will merit to bequeath. Okay. All right, yeah. Okay, next is my dad.
Second part of this is very confusing.
Yeah. What is the second?
I'm having trouble actually formulating a question.
Okay. What is the second half saying, like factually? Okay. Yeah.
We're assuming the senator is wealthy,
Right.
which is not always the case.
Right.
And why would it be concealed? I mean, there's all sorts of questions. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll ask the question. I think the broad question is the second half always true or only true? So this is always true, and this is like as per the literal reading, or is it only true in certain cases? Okay, as per Sadigon's reading, and if the latter, what are those cases? Yeah, Rivki.
Yeah, I'm feeling very similar. So that I'm wondering, I'm just interested in the fact it seems like to me there are 3 characters in this pasuk.
Yeah, interesting.
Person and also a tzaddik and also
okay. That's a good question. That's a really good question. I did not spot that question. Okay, so who are the 3 characters in this pasuk? Okay, i.e. the tov, the tzaddik, and the chote. And what is their relationship to each other, and then like why focus on these three? Okay, and then I'm gonna put a side question in case we end up thinking about this way. Why does Sadigon change sinner to evildoer? Yeah, Ayala?
So what are the opposites in these halves? It kind of just seems like two random things
Mhm.
that both have to do with inheritance, maybe.
Right. Okay, good. Yeah, that was my non-sequitur question. What is the relationship between the two halves? Okay. Are these opposites? Okay, is this a this is what we call a story time pasuk? Okay, where it's like describing like a narrative, which is kind of relates to Rivki's question. Yeah, Isaiah?
One second. I had this question. Now,
I'll come back to you. Rivki?
yep.
Two questions. One is, does it exclude children? Like, I'm just interested as to why it's saying banim.
Okay,
like
right. B'nai Banim, right. Okay, so so there's really four characters in the pasuk, but B'nai Banim seem to be like objects, not subjects. Okay, so yeah. All right. So why does it specify grandchildren? Okay, what does this imply about the children, right? So you see that Sadigon addressed that because he added the word also or even, right? So he's implying, not only is going to give it to his children, but also his grandchildren. Okay, good.
Just one more question also is, why would the righteous person even care about the wealth of a sinner? And I guess like we touched on that a little, but it just sounds funny.
Okay, so I'll say what interest does the tzaddik have in the wealth of the sinner? Yeah, Avital?
I was gonna kind of ask, like, is this a statement on like how, I guess, like deeds are run in the world, sort of? Like, is this in terms of like, okay, like, I guess I'm having a hard time like saying like reward and punishment type, or is this like a natural consequence? Like, where is this system fitting in?
Okay, yeah. So let's put this by our question on the second here, which is, like by what is the nature of the cause and effect here, right? So is this a natural result? Is this reward and punishment? Yeah.
Also, I think Simon had a question.
Yeah. So
Also, okay, where does it say inheritance? Maybe I missed something.
Like,
But
yeah, so
are we-
Yanchil literally means to bequeath, but I think the like the what do you call like in English, I mean, I guess you could just say bequeath in English, but it means like nachla is an inheritance, so it means like to give an inheritance to,
Okay.
but it's
Yeah,
not necessarily money, right?
It's not necessarily money, no. Yeah. Yeah. And so I just wanted to like because I just feel like it'd be weird if you said we'll bequeath to grandchildren, because then it's like bequeath what? So I feel like I have to put an inheritance in there. Yeah, Isaiah?
When we say that this good person will bequeath inheritance to grandchildren, is that really the quality of a good person? Like, or such, like, why not say he'll give his inheritance to his son, and then that person will divvy it up to his children? Like,
Okay.
why
Right.
is this even
Okay,
a
that's
good thing to do?
Okay, yeah. So what does the act of bequeathing to grandchildren say about this good person? Okay, so for example, like what if he gives bequeaths inheritance to his children, and his children divvy it up and give it to their children? Yeah. Does that capture your question, or am I missing something?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Ariel?
Or like he could die or something like that. Or like any other reason that he might just not get to do this.
Right.
Doesn't.
Okay, yeah, right. So what if he doesn't get to do this? Yeah. Yeah, Ariel?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. One, on that question, is it true that if you're a good person, you will just bequeath
Right.
stuff to your grandchildren? I know a
Okay,
lot of
yeah.
people who are good. They're just really bad with money, and they just don't leave anything over.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna tack that on here. Is this even true? What if you're
And
good, but you're bad with money? Right. Yeah, that's the weird thing. I mean, it's always weird when Mishlei just talked about ish tov or a good person, because you don't know what the quality of that is. But if it's, I don't know, if it said something like some chachma word here, then you could start like thinking, but good is just, I don't know, it doesn't automatically point to the fact that you have money making or money management skills.
right, which leads me to my next question: is what is a good person?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is the definition of good person in this context? And I'm going to go ahead and tack on the question, why use such a generic phrase? Yeah. Okay, Ella?
So what does it mean that the money is of the sinner is hidden for the
Yeah.
righteous person? Like, why is it hidden? By
Okay,
who?
right. So I'm going to put this into the factual question. I think my dad mentioned this as well. So in what sense is the wealth hidden? Okay, and like when does this happen? Is it like hidden during his lifetime, or like does the sinner die and then somehow it is hidden hidden away? Yeah, was it, who said laid up? I just want to actually check the BDB here and see what it says, because I mean tzafun does mean hidden, but it might also mean like stored away, hide up, or treasure up. Never heard that phrase before in English. To hide, to lurk, to be hidden, stored up. Yeah, okay, so you could say stored up also, I guess. Stored up. Yeah, but still is a question. Yeah. Okay. I think next is my dad.
Yeah, we talked about the money going to the grandchildren. Is there an implication there's something wrong with the children, the child of the good person?
Right. Okay, so I'm gonna add that on to, why does it specify grandchildren? What does this imply about his children? Like, do their qualities matter here? Yeah, Isaiah?
Sorry, it's another forgotten question.
Okay. Avital or Sima?
Yeah, I just had a question on, could you read it as a good person, like is one who will bequeath inheritance, or no?
That's a good one also.
Like as in like that's what makes like
Right.
before I was like what's a good person, and then
Right.
like
Okay. Or even a good person is one who bequeaths. And then we could say here, is the first half defining, or I guess describing what a good person does, or is it defining his goodness? Yeah. Another question? No. Okay. Isaiah, do you remember yours?
No, we asked it actually. I was gonna ask about like, does it matter who the grandchildren are? Like,
Right.
we have that somewhere.
Yeah. Okay. Another question I want to ask is, this is part of the question about what the second half is saying factually. What what is this wealth, and like, do we ask what the sinner is here? No, we didn't, right? Who is, yeah, let's say, who is the sinner in this context? What is this wealth? What is the relationship between the sinner and his wealth? Right? Like, because it implies that there's something specific about the sinner that's gonna cause his wealth to be, go down this this chain here. Okay, anything else that we're missing here? I do think we have to ask what the practical application is, because that's gonna, I mean, I know that kind of hinges on how we translate will bequeath, should bequeath, merit to bequeath. Yeah, Avital?
sorry, I had a separate question.
Sure.
I was just gonna ask, could you go up to the translation of the pasuk?
Yeah.
Or the pasuk
What is
in
the
general?
practical application here? both for the good and the bad decision. In other words, is it just saying that you should bequeath to your grandchildren? And even if so, is the bad decision like to be the sinner or to only bequeath to your children, like or something else? Yeah, all up here, yeah.
Could you read the second part as like, and like hidden to the tzaddik is the wealth of the sinner or unintentional sinner.
So you're saying hidden too, like it's concealed from him?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was, I think, how Isaiah wanted to try to read it, and I did not see anyone say that. It could be I missed it, but it seems like everyone's saying it's stored up or hidden for him, not to him. Yeah.
Like not from him.
And not from him, yeah.
Okay.
All right. Next is my mom, I think. Unless she's not there. Okay, I guess not. All right, I'm gonna start. I think we got all the questions. I'm gonna start copying and pasting these into the chat. And if you think of more questions, then you can ask. Okay, so 1 through 5. Okay, that works. And I don't think I'm gonna be able to get this in one haul. Oh, I did. Ooh. Okay, small pleasures in life. 6, 7. Yeah, Vital? Nope. My mom?
I'm having connectivity issues, so I may have lost something. Do we care what the Russia does with his wealth, or is that not?
Yeah, that's a good thing to tack onto the end question. What do we care what the Russia does with his wealth? Okay, so like according to Sadia Gaon, yes. Oh, I forgot to put the translation of the pasuk into the chat. But according to our interpretation, question mark? What? Yeah, okay. So let me copy these translations. Here is our translation first. And then here are the other 2 translations. Okay. Okay, let us take our thinking minute. Tough one. Okay, I don't want to suggest an idea. I think saying this would suggest an idea. Never mind. Let's continue thinking.
Yeah, definitely don't spoil the movie here.
Yeah. Okay, Isaiah.
Okay, so I think this is a really interesting pasuk, and I hope my idea is true.
Okay. Wait, can I just say a methodology thing first? Hopefully
Yeah.
my idea is I think the fact that you said that is good methodology, because sometimes what you have to do is you have to just say the idea as it sounds like the pasuk is seeing it, even if it sounds implausible, and then worry about its truth value later, because sometimes either you'll develop it beyond what you're saying and then realize a case where it is true, or like I don't know. It's good policy to like separate those 2 questions, like we do in Tehillim. But yeah, go ahead.
Right. So I think the first half of this, to me, is saying like a good person doesn't like sort of not have a plan for his wealth, because he realizes the purpose of wealth is sort of like for the world today, like in its running manner, and he's going to die at some point, and so he should have a plan for like what happens to his wealth after him, so that his family like can continue to use that wealth as he continues, like after he's gone. So like if he has enough, he'll even give it to his grandchildren, because like he just wants to ensure that it gets used like to its fullest extent. Like if he doesn't do that, then that's kind of like squandering it.
All right,
but
sounds good so far.
Yeah, but a chote, like he doesn't he doesn't necessarily like have that kind of attitude towards his wealth. He's more like not really thinking about what he's doing with it. He's either like squandering it while he's alive, or he's not coming up with a smart plan for it for the future. And so what happens to it? It goes off into the ether. And what I mean by that is it goes into the economy, where the tzaddik, who takes advantage of the system, is there waiting, like kind of like reaping the benefit of this guy who he didn't like hold its benefit aside for his own. He like put it out there, and now any tzaddik who like is a part of the system is like benefiting from the benefits of the system that it still exists. The money still is existing.
Right.
Just not used by his family.
Okay. All right, that's really good. Okay, good. Yeah, and that's very close to the idea that I'm going to say. So that, but a slightly different emphasis. All right, let me write this down. So part of being a good person, you know what? Hold on a second. I'm going to take a stab here, and tell me if this works out for you, because I think this would make it even better. It does not mean morally good or morally sinful. It means good with money and bad with money. You know, and they've got a tzaddik.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, because like a little bit sounds like it's okay what happened to the money in the second half, but All right,
good. So part of being good with money, and this answers the question of like Ariel's question of what if you're a good person? That doesn't mean you manage your money well. But if it's talking about a person who's good with money versus someone who sins with money, meaning again, chote means like making mistakes. You know, Ariel, you want to add?
Yeah. I think like I like Isaiah's idea, and I may have some definitions for the ish tov here.
Okay.
That may help out, and I want to say that maybe a good person in this specific case, like I think it's kind of like your outlook on your value system, and I think a good person here, and good person is already implying that he's not a Russia, he's not like that, because I think that in itself is a contradiction, but like he really just values his family. Like he values his immediate circle.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And just because he has that he's in the world within that lens, what the question he's asking himself is, what can he possibly do to sustain his family and leave a legacy for his descendants, But the tzaddik, he's not in that framework. He's more of a broader framework, is what can I do for the system as a whole?
Right.
So I wanted to contrast that. I wanted to say that maybe this pasuk is a contrast on how the tzaddik lives his lifestyle versus a good person, how he lives his lifestyle. One's more insular versus more broader.
Yeah. Okay, I think
But,
what I want to do,
I like Isaiah's idea also. I think
I think I want to write down Isaiah's idea, and I think I like your idea because it answers Rifki's question better about who the three characters are. So part of being good, I'll say good or good with money, I'll just leave it or for a second here, is having a plan for what to do with your resources beyond your own life, and even beyond the life of your kids whom you have like more certain knowledge about. Okay, and I know you didn't say that part, Isaiah, but I think that's like, it's very easy if you are, I don't know, like, I don't know what lifespans were back then, but like, presumably, leaving money for your kids who are adults, it's easier to envision what use that money is going to go to. But for grandkids or unborn grandkids, like, that's a much more abstract level, Okay, so that's that. In contrast, the sinner, okay, and I'll say, or one who makes mistakes with his money, isn't thinking on that plane, but is, I don't know if you said this, Isaiah, or if I'm just saying this, but is likely just making, decisions that are more rooted in the immediate present, which will result in squandering his wealth.
I actually think it's either he's doing that or he's like hoarding his money and not bequeathing it.
Or hoarding his money. Okay, that's actually closer to my idea even more. Okay. However, when that guy dies, or loses his money, it will go back into the economy. And the tzaddik, who cares about utilizing good from the system for the system, will take full advantage of it for good. Okay, so then just to then summarize Ariel's idea is there are 3 levels. Okay, one, actually I'm not going to put this in order. Okay, I'll put in the order of the pasuk. So the good person is thinking beyond himself, but only to people in his family down the line. And he will look out for their future welfare. Okay, then the sinner is, how do you say the sinner, Ariel? Similar to Isaiah, like he's just not thinking about his...
I didn't specifically say anything about the chote here. I kind of just right now I'm getting lazy. I'm just using Isaiah's idea.
Okay, that's fine. All right, so
really
I'll just write the tzaddik part of it, and then we could fill it in. Okay. The tzaddik, however, looks beyond his immediate family, and wants to use the money for the good of the system as a whole.
Oh, I have one. I have an idea for the chote. I mean, I think it's pretty simple. Like the chote, he's just in it for himself, and he's not really there for the family. He's not there for anyone else other than himself, and he's gonna just be using money for whatever.
Yeah.
And he's just putting it into the economy, and like
okay.
Everyone's taking advantage of it.
Good,
whatever.
yeah. Unclear to me, by the way, whether there are 2 ideas in here, or whether like if we kept pursuing them, then they would meld or like complement each other. Yeah, Avital?
Yeah, how are we just taking the sinner as the one who makes mistakes with money? I just feel like in some ways, I really like the idea and I think it could be really true. I just don't exactly understand why we're translating like somebody who sins unintentionally as somebody who's bad with money.
Right. So chote. So I'm not committed to that. That's why I put it in the parentheses. But chote does just, the primary meaning is to hold on a second. I want to look up hate, and actually I want to show you on the Klein dictionary also. For those who don't know, so the BDB is specifically a Tanakh dictionary, okay? And why is this not loading? Okay. And let me just see if this is the first place where it says it. Chatas. Chatas, sin. Where's the first time it says hate? Hold on. Hate. Chatu, chatai. Maybe chatu as a verb, it would have it. Chatu. Yeah. So primary meaning of the verb chata is to miss, right? To miss a goal or a way, or to go wrong, or to sin. Okay, and it's related in the Arabic to do wrong, commit a mistake or an error, to make or miss the mark, to miss the mark, to miss the way. Ethiopic, I didn't know that was a language. To fail, to find, or have. Okay, and then in the Klein dictionary, which is a good Hebrew dictionary that also extends to Rabbinic Hebrew, which is on Sfaria. Why am I going to? Oh, I was looking up. That's not going to be good. Hold on. Oh, I hate the interface on Sfaria. Klein dictionary. Hate. Hate also means, where's the verb? Yeah. Also, first meaning is to miss the mark or to wrong or to sin, So I think we tend to automatically assume that the primary meaning is to sin, and then we realize that missing the mark is another thing. But hate means to make a mistake, So I think when you put it together where you say like, you got this weird thing of a good person, which is just weird in general. Then you've got the fact, Ariel's question of just because he's good doesn't mean that he's going to, have enough money to be able to bequeath to his grandchildren. And then you have the, my question of why is it only the wealth of the sinner, So to me, it's like, if you just assume that it is someone who is good with money and someone who makes mistakes with money, it just is a much smoother, like, you don't have to like posit all this stuff, So that's why I like that. Yeah. Okay. I think this is like a good like 80% idea. Like I think it'd be nice to just I feel like there's just a little fuzzy around the edges, you know?
What's missing?
What's missing is I still feel like what we're doing is we are okay. Well, this is more of a critique of Isaiah's idea than what you're saying, but I feel like this is also a critique of you just saying that I'm being lazy. You know, I know you eventually say he's in it for himself, but I feel like hold on, let me think about it for a second.
Well, I kind of like what you were saying about the chote. If we're all speaking within the context of your relationship with your value system with regards to your family and the overall picture, and versus just limiting it to yourself and being selfish with your money, and which will result you in making mistakes about using money.
Yeah.
That in itself is is a
okay, yeah. So
I
actually okay. I think you're right. I think I do like this idea. So let's just do like a one like subject of the pasuk, okay, which is 3 ways to relate to money. Okay, is one is carelessly. Okay, second, sorry, that's not how you spell carelessly. Carelessly. The next way is I don't want to say beneficially, but like good with money. Okay.
practically.
But, yeah, but still prioritizing the self. And then 3 is justly, okay, or righteously. Which is benefiting the system. See, all right, now I'll tell you what I still think is missing. It is strange. The pasuk still feels lopsided, like the money of the careless person. No, actually, it makes sense that it's lopsided. The lopsidedness is it mentioned, why are we talking about the interaction between the wealth of the sinner or of the mistaken, the careless person, and the wealth of the tzaddik? Because only this guy loses his money. The guy in the first half, it still stays in his family, So I think that does make sense. Okay, I'm happy with this idea now.
Yeah, and just like I remember doing this with Rabbi Markowitz in Pirkei Avos. I think they say that like if someone like throws money into the river,
yeah,
versus someone who just uses the money for like a bad, I don't know, investment, like definitely give more money to the guy who made a bad investment versus the other guy, because at the very least he knows what the purpose of money is. He just made a bad investment versus the other guy just has no idea what the purpose of money is.
Right. Yeah.
So it's just
I hear.
whatever.
Yeah, Isaiah, you had something to add?
Yeah. Well, kind of a question on this subject, 3 ways to relate to money section that you wrote. Like, what would the tzaddik do with the money that he has to give for inheritance? Are you saying he would do something different than give it to his family?
No, he's going to give it to his family as well, but he's going even beyond his family, which might mean, I mean, practically speaking, it is going to mean that he's giving less to his family, right? Like you can't give outside your family without taking away from what your family is, but he's doing it in a way because that he recognizes that what's good for the system is going to ultimately benefit his family as well.
Got it.
Yeah. Yeah. Good example of this. So last night was the school dinner for Nija, for the high school that I'm teaching at. And the honoree was this guy named Curtis Robinson. Okay. He was this black guy from like segregated Alabama. He was born in 1942. And like he basically like one of these success stories, worked really hard, made a bunch of money, and then basically like has just been investing money into science and research and innovation and education for Jewish schools and the black community. And like for our school, like he just like donated he has a whole program that like they have a whole like technology center and like bought 3D printers and stuff like that. So like you can ask a guy like, and it was interesting because like seeing his family there, like this whole table of like his family, and it's just like, it was just, I don't know, you don't usually see 2 radically different communities like that, getting together. And he's an example of this pasuk because like he could have just invested in in his own particular family or even his own community, but he's investing in the entire like Hartford community, and like doing what's best for everyone because he knows that raising kids to be innovators and to be knowledgeable in science is going to ultimately benefit everyone, So like I think that's like a good example of this pasuk. Okay, let's move on to a different idea, unless my dad has something to add to this one.
Not to add to it.
No, different idea. Okay.
Right. So the question is, what is the motivation for the sinner to hide his wealth?
Oh, interesting. So you're assuming that he is hiding the wealth.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's hidden from the righteous
Right,
person.
but it doesn't necessarily have to be that the sinner is hiding it. It could be, but I was getting the implication that like something happens to it or he loses it and then it gets hidden away for the righteous. But
I'm saying no. I'm saying that he's a fraud.
Okay.
He's acting as if he was poor, and he's acting as if he was poor to take advantage of the tzaddik. Now, it's not a chacham that he's conning. The chacham would figure him out, but the tzaddik might be more prone to, financially support someone who acts poor.
Okay.
And so that's my thought. Basically, that the sinner. I meant to preface this by saying I'm using the sort of generic definition of a sinner. I'm not tuned in to the intentional sin.
Okay, so I have the same problem with this that I have with Isaiah and Avital, which is I don't think just grammatically I don't think you can read it that he's hiding it from the tzaddik. It's hiding it for the tzaddik, So I mean, so again, this is not a critique of the idea, but just I don't think the pasuk is. Yeah. And then the other thing also, what would be interesting though, is if you could read it that way. So then the question is, so then what's the practical advice,
Yeah.
Right. But it is creative reading. I think it stretches the limits of the word.
One other comment. Both the evil person, the sinner, and the grandchildren, both of them are receiving money that's an unearned.
Right.
I don't know if that.
Okay, good. That was what I almost gave away when I said that when we were asking the question of what's the relationship between the two halves. Mm-hmm. So I said, are they opposites? Is it a storytime pasuk? But I wanted to add, or are they parallels? Mm-hmm. Okay, insofar as both the tzaddik and the grandchildren are receiving money that they didn't, earn in a primary way. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a fruitful observation. Yeah. Okay. Rivki.
Okay, so this is not like a baked idea. Just some like random thoughts that I had that I thought might be interesting. So I was thinking about it more, and this is like my most solid thought, that tov isn't specifically being good with money, but more like the relationship that a person has to money.
Okay.
I think they're two different things.
Yeah.
So what I was thinking was that this person in the first half he's not seeing like kind of like the idea that we have about tzedakah, that like the point of tzedakah, besides for helping your family and your community, is also to make your relationship with money a good relationship and not unhealthy. Okay. And so like recognize obviously like that your life is going to end and that you're not supposed to have that attachment. You're not taking it with you, obviously.
Right.
So that's like kind of like my thought for the first half is that that person recognizes it.
Okay, good. So the person in the first half relates to his money in a way where he knows he's going to die and that he can't take his money with him. So he provides for the next generations.
Yeah, exactly. And then this part is not as, I think, easy to see in the pasuk, but I'm wondering if we could say that the righteous person and the chote are related.
Okay.
Just because I was thinking, why else would it be that the first
that was what I was bothering me about, the lopsidedness of the pasuk, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because I think otherwise, like to me, it doesn't really make sense to say in the first half we're talking about grandchildren. In the second half, it's just these two random people that are not related at all. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So I think that would be really interesting. I didn't work it out as much as I did the first half, but I do think that it's a very, first of all, like the point being that this is just a philosophical point that like just because your ancestors are whoever they are, like it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to end up being like them in a negative sense. But I don't have it worked out for what the relationship between the money would be.
Okay, so what is that relationship, and how does this tie into the subject in the first half of relationship with money? Okay, good. I think that is a good half-baked idea. Yeah, when you said it's not baked, I thought you meant like not baked at all. I thought you were just like giving raw dough, but it is half-baked at least. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else? Gulp. Okay, so let me show you what a couple of the meforshim say. I have one idea which actually is no longer as similar to Isaiah's as I thought, but it sounded the same. Okay, so let's start off as we usually do with the Metzudas David and just see what we get out of it. Hold on here. Okay, Metzudas David says, Tov is ish tov. Okay, a good man. Yanchil nachalaso af libnei banav. So, oops. The good man will bequeath his inheritance even to his grandchildren. Aval osher achote, but the wealth of the sinner, tzafun l'tzadik, is hidden away for the tzaddik. Sorry, tzaddik, afilu lebanav lo yanchil, and he will not bequeath it even to his children. Okay, so that just I don't know if he's saying an idea yet, but that is just an elegant reading of the pasuk, because he's accounting for why it emphasizes grandchildren in the first half and saying, you know, the tzaddik doesn't, this idea, Choted doesn't even give it to his children, you know. So I think that the Metzudas David can easily accommodate like Isaiah's or Ariel's idea, you know. So I think that's a good support. But I think beyond that, it's hard to tell what he's getting out of it. So like, I think if Ariel and Isaiah didn't have their ideas and we read this Metzudas David, I'm pretty confident that we would like arrive at a similar place. Okay, so let's put this on hold. Okay. Similarly, I'm going to show you also the Rabbeinu Yonah says something that looks also vague and similar. We've had a problem with this Rabbeinu Yonah, two Rabbeinu Yonahs in a row. Last week in my morning shiur, we had an extremely short Rabbeinu Yonah, and now we have another extremely short one. I don't know what's going on. So he says the tzaddik yizke lahanchil nachlas lebanim ulebnei banim will merit to bequeath his inheritance inheritance to his children and his grandchildren. So he's addressing that question. Umikan ve'elach, and more. Interesting. Ach chel chote, but the wealth of the chote, zochet tzaddik, is how would you translate I guess that's, I'm just going to reverse the order, but the tzaddik merits the wealth of the chote. V'chein, and similarly, v'tzadik yilbash. Okay, this is actually a full pasuk here. Eov 27. Where did I get it? Eov 27. What was it? 27:17. Yachin v'tzadik yilbash the chesef nach yachlog. Okay, so it's saying the Russia will prepare it and the tzaddik will wear it. Okay, so this is the Russia will prepare it, but the tzaddik will wear it. It's a rhyme. Will wear it. Yeah. Okay. So the only thing he really adds here, other than clarifying that's the children and grandchildren and more, is merit. He puts this in terms of merit. Okay. Yeah, Ariel.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, how's he defining a tzaddik over here?
Not clear. He doesn't really give us much to work with, right?
Yeah, I know. Is he just like I mean, yeah, I don't like it.
Well, okay.
Sorry, I just I guess what I mean is like if we're using our own definition of a tzaddik here, it's like not every tzaddik is good with money. Like I don't what it.
Well, right. So that might be what he's trying to answer by saying he will merit it. That it's not necessarily going to be a that he's like making the money himself, but he's going to like deserve it or something like that.
Yeah, I know, but to say it's one thing if he merits it, but to say that not only will he bequeath it to his children, but his grandchildren and more, that's like Rockefeller.
Okay, I do have an explanation for that. Okay,
okay.
Mine is going to be with the Meiri. Yeah, but Ayala.
Just interesting that he equates Tov with Tzaddik also.
Oh, that is true. I didn't even notice that. Yeah, that's another option, right? I mean, yeah, like it's we see a lot of times where the psukim use kafel hadavar b'milashonos, where it uses just two different terms to refer to it. But yeah, it is it's a convenient way to answer Rivki's question about why there are three characters here. Okay, but now this is where I got the idea. Yeah, Benji.
He quotes a pasuk from Eov, and he's also just saying that the tzaddik will merit.
Yeah.
So is he saying like through a causal relationship or like hashgacha?
That's what I'm not sure about. I was thinking also this might be like what Rivki was saying, that merit could imply a certain perfection, that based on the way he relates to money, then this will be the case. Okay, but I do think I have an idea here. Okay, so and that'll I think address your questions. Okay, so Meiri, this is where I saw it. Okay, so he says bam milas tov toar. Okay, fine. So he says tov is an adjective to describe the person. V'hi aratoris. This is a Torah idea. Okay, Isha Tov Yamor Chelo, that the good man will preserve his wealth. Ad Shiyanchim Mimenu B'nei Banav, to the point where he will bequeath to his grandchildren, V'koshkein Banav, and certainly his children. And that the money of the sinner is hidden away for him. Okay, I'm curious if this next pasuk is something that that Rivki or Ayala or Avital or Sima associated to. Kamamar, as it is stated in Koheles, Vlachote nasan inyan lesov lichnos, that God gave the sinner the inyan is a weird word here. The preoccupation to gather and amass, so I guess to amass, yeah, let's say to gather and collect. Laseis letov lifnei halakim, in order to give to the one who is good before God. Okay, and then he quotes the same pasuk in Eov, and also in Eov. Okay, so the question is, what is that pasuk? Okay, so I'm going to open my Koheles PowerPoint from the olden days. Okay, so the way I explain this so you have this hold on a second here. Okay, so this is where actually I first introduced the idea of Samech B'chalko into the Koheles curriculum. Okay, Ezehu Asher, who is wealthy, Samech B'chalko, someone who's happy with his portion. Okay, and the logic of the answer is faultless, which is, okay, well, I'm not going to go to Koheles. Okay, fine. So here's the pasuk in Koheles that he's interpreting. So it says, Ein tov ba'adam shiochel this is in 2:24 through 26. Ein tov ba'adam shiochel v'shasav v'hera es nafsho tov ba'amalo. Is it not good for a man that he eats and drinks and shows his soul satisfaction in his labor? Gamzo ra'isi ani ki miyad ha'elokim hi. And even that I saw is from the hand of God. Ki mi yochal umi yachush chutz mimeni. Who should eat and who should make haste except me? Okay, if you don't understand that, then that's normal. Okay, like what is he saying? Okay, but here he says like this: Ki la'adam shetov lefanav, to the man who, okay, this is Art Scroll's translation, who pleases him, but who is like good before God, meaning like good in God's eyes. Nasan chachma v'das v'simcha, he has given wisdom, knowledge, and joy. V'lachote, but to the sinner, nasan inyan lesov livnos laseis latov lifnei halakim, gamzo, he has given the urge to gather and amass. Gamzo ze hevel rus ruach. This too is futile and frustration. Okay, so I'm going to try to just explain the idea here without going into all of Koheles. Okay, so the question we had here is, is this sounds like it's not true, right? Like God is going to give the sinner the desire to amass wealth. Okay, fine, that you could say that, but then he's doing it to give it to the one who's pleasing to God. Like it makes it sound like a person who's pleasing to God or who's good before God is going to get all the money of this sinner. And if the pasuk in Koheles isn't clear, our pasuk sounds like it's definitely saying that, because it literally says that the wealth of the sinner is going to go to the tzaddik. Okay, so here's how I explain it in Koheles. Okay, you have two people. You have the guy who is who is sameach b'chalko, the guy who's happy with his portion, and the guy who's eno sameach b'chalko, who's not happy with his portion. Okay, so Hashem is going to give wealth and success. Okay, so if Hashem gives wealth and success to the guy who's happy with his portion, what is he going to do? He's going to enjoy it. And if he gives it to the guy who is not happy with his wealth, he's not going to enjoy it. He's just going to be wanting more. Okay, that's why he's frantically reaching out. Okay, so now watch what happens on a generational level. Okay, if Hashem gives wealth and success to this guy, he will have it and use it and enjoy it. But if Hashem gives it to that guy, right, who's not happy, he will be unhappy and complain and complain and complain. And then when he dies, it's going to pass on to someone else. Okay. Now, when he passes it on to someone else, he's either going to pass it on to someone who is just like him, okay, or other people who are just like him, but eventually it's going to get to someone who's going to enjoy it, okay? And the analogy I think I gave in class is, let's say I give Ayala a cookie, and she says thank you, and she enjoys it, okay? So it's as if I am giving it directly to her, okay? But let's say I give it to Ariel, and he just sits there complaining about the cookie, and then he dies, and then gives it to Rivki, and then she just complains about it and dies and gives it to my dad, you know? So and then my dad enjoys it. So it's like I gave it directly to my dad, because the people in between didn't do anything with it and didn't get anything out of it. So that's how I'm understanding this idea here in Koheles. Again, I'm not saying this is the same as in Mishlei. So in Koheles, that's the idea that when God gives money to someone who is just trying to get more money, who's given the urge to desire to amass and gather, that person is not enjoying it. So it's like God is not giving it to that person. And that money, like Isaiah originally said, is just going to end up going to someone else. And it's going to keep on just being passed from hand of greedy sinner to hand of greedy sinner until it gets to someone who actually is going to enjoy it. Okay, so that's the Koheles idea. Okay. The Mishlei application is like Isaiah said earlier, which is, okay, this is my main idea, I think. Okay, let's just call it a half-baked main idea, just to make myself feel better if it doesn't work out. Half-baked main idea is that hold on, I just had it, is money is only of value to someone who uses it for good. Okay, so the guy in the first half of the pasuk, I think this is going to sound very much like Isaiah's. The guy in the first half of the pasuk is actually appreciating the money, and is providing it for his children and grandchildren to appreciate. Okay. And as long as he keeps up, that way of relating to the money and instructing his children, this is kind of a combination of Rivki's idea also, in relating to the money that way, then that good will continue. Okay. However, the sinner, i.e., someone who is just trying to get more money, okay, and is not enjoying it and happy with what he has, will end up dying without ever having received or like benefited from his money, and it will go back into the system where it will eventually get to someone who does use it properly. In fact, the more I say this, the more I'm talking myself into the fact that this is what Rabbeinu Yonah meant. Right? There are only two people here, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and just preface that, okay? Based on Rabbeinu Yonah's reading, according to which the good person in the first half is the tzaddik in the second half. Okay. Anyone have any comments on this? I just saw there's a chat here. Hold on. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, sorry, I don't have my second monitor today, so I didn't see the chat until now. Yeah. Ayala?
just to clarify, how exactly are you defining the chote in this
I'm defining the
explanation?
chote the way that the pasuk in Koheles says it, which is someone who has the desire to amass more. And it's interesting because that, hold on, where else did I see this definition? Let me just see if the meforshim and Koheles say that. I feel like there is a definition of chote, which means someone who is like relating to money in the wrong way. I mean, I could just say what I said earlier, that he's relating to the money in a mistaken way, but it's different than what I was thinking. Okay, hold on a second. Blachote. I'm just gonna skim these really quickly. Oh, you know what? Altor's been having a problem just today, which is that when you click to the different one of the mefarshim, you need to refresh the page for it to load. Chote. He's okay. No, he doesn't say that. You know, it's gonna take me too long to go through all the mefarshim here, but that is what I'm saying with the chote is someone who is. I'm just defining it based on the way that the pasuk is using it. That he's just the guy who has the urge to amass more money. Yeah, Ariel.
Yeah. So it, can you explain how this is like a Mishleic idea?
How is this a Mishleic idea? Yeah, is you should enjoy your money. And you should relate to it in a way where you're going to enjoy it and you're going to relate to it properly. This is very much like Rivki's idea that or you know sprouting from Rivki's idea. You should relate to your money as a way. You know, there's only two things you should do you should do with your money. One is use it for your own enjoyment. The other is to use it for justice. You know, and maybe that's why it says tov and tzaddik, and those are two descriptions of the same person. You know, the tov means that he enjoys it as a good that God gave him, and you're naturally, by the way, going to share that more with your family and others. You know, like no one, you know, even the greatest tzaddik doesn't you know provide a house that is as good for all poor people as he does for himself, you know, or clothing, you know. So like you should use it for yourself and use it for justice.
So is he making a distinction between an ish tov versus a tzaddik?
I'm saying that my idea is based on the Rabbeinu Yonah, who is saying that the ish tov is the tzaddik, and it's just being called two different ways. I'm just going to add this here. Perhaps the ish tov. Sorry, perhaps he calls this person an ish tov to what do you call it? To underscore the fact that he is appreciating the tov of the money, and he calls him a tzaddik to underscore the fact that he's using it for justice. Oh, by the way, I also want to say that this is why it describes it as hidden away, because, you know, this is not physically hidden away in the sense that like the money is like buried, you know, or in a safety deposit box. It means that like only the tzaddik is going to be able to see this, you know, because you need to relate to money in the proper way, you know. So it's like you know, this money, the ability to enjoy the money that you have is hiding in plain sight, you know, but only the person who relates to money properly will be able to actually benefit from that and will be able to convey that benefit to his kids.
Okay, I just have a follow-up question.
Yeah.
So is it normal for Mishlei to use, you know, like two separate terms, like specifically like tzaddik and tov, or something similar in those categories to convey the same, that it's the same person?
So here's the thing. I can't say it's typical. And if the word were anything other than tov, I would be bothered by it. Like if it was another technical term, like let's say the first half said chacham, I would find it weird that we are talking about a chacham and a tzaddik and they're the same. But because tov is a generic term, you know, then I'm more comfortable with saying that like it's describing, you know, the person in the same language, and especially because I am providing an explanation for why it's using both of them, you know, like in other words, if you just had the idea that this is a person who uses his money for justice, you wouldn't necessarily get the idea that he's enjoying his money, which is what Koheles is pointing you to. And if you just had the idea that he's enjoying his money, then you wouldn't get the idea that he should be using it for justice. You know, you need both. So I feel like I feel like in this case, I feel like in general your intuition is right that like it'd be weird for Mishlei to use two different terms for the same person. But here I feel like it's acceptable, and I am explaining why it actually is needed to state the idea here.
So you would say that tov can be an exception to the rule.
Yeah, because it's so vague,
Okay.
And ra would also be an exception to the rule, right? If it said
Right.
it said ish ra in the first half and it said fool in the second half or something like that, or Russia, I would say like, yeah, it could be talking about the same thing.
Right. Okay, fine. And after Avital goes, I have like another idea.
Okay, sure. And Meiri has a derech nistar idea, by the way, which I know you're gonna not want to miss. Yeah. Yeah, Avital.
Okay, first of all, I'm glad we not clarified, but I really like this idea of the tov yancha being, or the tov being the same as the tzaddik.
Yeah,
because
I was skeptical. I thought Rabbeinu was pulling a fast one, but it works out.
because like that's, I feel like exactly what we say what the tzaddik is, that it's somebody who looks at the whole system and not
Right.
just like himself, and that like
Right.
for his grandchildren, like that makes a lot of sense.
Right, and the fact that he's also not depriving himself, and that is a pasuk in Mishlei, is tzaddik ocha l'sova nafsho. The tzaddik eats to satisfy his own soul. And I think when we learned this in high school, we were saying like, why would you describe if you're talking about the right way to eat, why would you describe it as a tzaddik? Like, well, the answer is that the tzaddik is taking care of himself because he is a creature in the system who needs sustenance, but he has to take care of himself first.
Right. In order to be able to affect the system,
Right.
you have
Right.
to be
Yeah.
getting up. But then also kind of for the second part, I don't know if this is like a different I guess thought or idea, or if it was like said within before, but in terms of the way that this person who's the chayal chotet, or like who's like sinning with his money or whatever it is, like it's not even like your own children, it's not okay. So maybe your grandchildren won't get, but like to even not have your children get for some reason of whatever this person's doing, and for it to like go into kind of the system. I think Ariel was saying something about this before, and come out like for the tzaddik, sort of.
Yeah.
That it's not, it's not even like his own children is just like something that makes sense, but he's like really kind of messed up that it just goes into the system, and because it's in that system, that the tzaddik like benefits from that.
Yeah, I want to that brings up a clarification though, okay, which is that like I'm just going to ask this as a question here, which is, why doesn't the chote provide for his own children? Okay, so I think there's two answers to this. Okay, two possibilities. Okay, one is that he is so short-sighted with his wealth that he squanders it, and the other is, you want to say what the other way that he doesn't that he's not providing for his children? Yeah.
Maybe he wants to, but he just thinks he knows more than he does about money, and like he just makes so many mistakes that he just.
Okay, I think that's a possibility, but to me, I would include that in the first one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say maybe like the picture that you drew or
Yeah.
whatever from the slides, that like he does give them physical money, but they too don't know how to enjoy it. So
Okay,
it's as
right.
if they don't have it.
So exactly. So he does provide them with money, but he'll likely pass on his way of relating to money to his kids, and they won't be able to enjoy it either. Yeah, I think that fits in really nice with the tzaddik as well. In other words, the tzaddik is passing down two things, right? He's preserving money because he sees the need and the good, and he's also relating to the money in a way where he enjoys it. And now his kids see, oh, this is how we relate to money, and they do the same thing, and then they do the same thing, and that's where you can get. By the way, this is what I meant to say, that this is gonna answer your question, Ariel. That's why Rabbeinu Yonah is saying zoche, and that's why he says it goes on for all generations. Because as long as he keeps doing this, he will be zoche, meaning he'll have the zechus, he'll have the perfection to keep this up and to carry on that legacy of how they relate to money. And even if they don't have a lot of money, this tendency to be able to enjoy your money that you do have and be able to use it for the purposes of tzedakah will get passed on, again, in all Mishleic likelihood. Yeah, Rivki?
Yeah, just another potential possibility. I think it's interesting to think about, because I think money really creates strife between people, and especially within families.
Right.
So I was wondering if we could also say that like another possibility as to why he's not giving it to his and maybe not, because it doesn't say Russia specifically, at least in our translation, but that he just doesn't include it in his will. And like You see, like in these
Right.
people, they're like so entitled to that because obviously, like it's their parent. But at the end of the day, like obviously the law, legal it makes
Yeah.
it exactly drama.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
I would
Yeah.
say that's why you should definitely make a will.
Am
Because
I
like if you don't have a will, it's up to the government, and then once it's up to the government, there's gonna be so many losses
right?
amongst the siblings, and then yeah, I've heard a lot of stories about that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, my mom can correct me if I'm wrong, but when Popo was in assisted living, when my grandma was in assisted living, she had a really good friend named Pinky who was very rich, but I guess her kids, either her kids weren't good or she didn't get along with the kids, but like she was always like changing the will to like write them out of it, or like using it kind of like as a way to like manipulate them, that's not gonna be a healthy way to relate to the money. Yeah, okay, so Ariel had another approach, and then we got Benji after.
So it's not a full approach, it's more
Sure.
on the zchus thing.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering maybe if you could potentially say, I mean, I do happen to like this idea better, but just another thought, like like zchus, maybe it just means that like other people see a tzaddik and they would want to pass on like other benefits from the world onto the tzaddik to help him and his family for the future, to
Yeah.
sustain the tzaddik.
Yeah,
In that sense, it could also be a merit.
that could be. Yeah, again, it's very hard to work with Rabbeinu Yonah that says so little. I feel like my interpretation, if you just, again, the word zechus, according to my whole theory of zechus and avon, that I've given lots of shiurim on, zechus means perfection. So like, to me, the idea that I just explained fits in very cleanly with Rabbeinu Yonah, that he will be perfected in a way that allows him to transfer his money to his kids forever, which means perfected in how he makes decisions with it practically, mishleically, and in terms of koheles, how he relates to his money. So I think it just like fits in, as opposed to, let's say, like the way other people will relate to him. Like I don't see any of that in the Rabbeinu Yonah.
But my only question is, it's a small question, but we do see that there are a lot of chachamim and tzaddikim who don't really know much about money.
See that you're missing the point.
So
You're missing the point.
Okay.
I think you're missing
it's how they relate to money. Fine, but it's
but nowhere does it say that the tzaddik is making a lot of money. It's saying that he's going to pass on the money that he has to his kids and to his grandkids. Obviously, if you don't have enough to eat, and when you die, then that's it. Then I think that's a problem. With a tzaddik. But I'm saying like tzaddik could have like a modest amount, and this would still be a true pasuk. Because the question is, what are you doing with your money, and are you enjoying it? And you don't need a lot to enjoy.
Okay.
Yeah, Benji.
So is the Russia only like he's not passing anything down, and like is the trying to think, is the way he gives his money to the tzaddik, is that you're saying he passes it down and eventually it goes to tzaddik who will be able to enjoy the money?
Right.
So what's the consequence to the Russia to the choteh besides for the fact that he doesn't enjoy his money?
Yeah, that's the consequence. It's the perfect mida connected mida consequence, because he's spending his whole life in this frantic state of trying to gather money, and he's not enjoying it. He's not, the one thing he devoted his whole life to, he doesn't get to enjoy, It's like the perfect Mishlei mina connected mida. Why? That's an open pasuk in Koheles, by the way. That's Ohev kesef lo yisba kesef. One who loves money will not be satisfied with money.
So you're saying that he doesn't relate to it properly, so he doesn't enjoy it. So that's the consequence. But then it's saying then he'll end up giving it to a tzaddik. But why is that?
But he's dead at that point, right? So that's not gonna affect him.
So why does that matter to him though? Like why is
it doesn't matter to him.
So the consequence is
just what matters to him is that he's gonna, like, the notion of like losing his money, and the fact that the tzaddik gets it is also mida connected mida, because remember the purpose of mida connected mida is, whether it's in hashgacha pratis or in mishlei, is to point you to the path of tshuva for your sin, either by identifying the sin or by identifying how to do tshuva for it. So the fact that he, that Shlomo was telling him, hey, your money's going to go to a tzaddik, which we're defining as someone who relates to money properly, And if you don't get your act together and relate to money properly, like you're not going to enjoy it. You know, it's like it's mapping out the whole path of what his fault is and like what the correct model looks like. Yeah. Okay, let's do the Meiri's derech nistar. Okay, which might have been where I was influenced by the for the main idea. Okay, so I'm going to translate this. Oh, hold on, let me actually just indent this. Okay. You know, I read this in Mishlei, in my morning Mishlei, but I don't think I've read this here in a long time. So I just want to read the Meiri has a way. Where's the Zakane? In chapter 9. Oh, chapter 4. Okay, so Meiri has this way of writing his derech nistar ideas that uses a mashal in Koheles, as explained by Chazal. Okay, so the pasuk says, "Tov yeled miskein v'chacham mimelech zachein uksil asher lo yada lihizahir od." Better is the poor wise youth than the old and foolish king who no longer knows how to guard himself. Ki mi beis hasurim yata limloch, because he emerged from the prison to rule. Gamba malchuso nolad rash, and even in his kingship he is born poor. So what does all that mean? So the Chazal, which Rashi is quoting, says, "Tov yeled miskein v'chacham." I'll just write this here. Hold on. So he says hold on. Okay, so he says the poor wise youth zeizer tov. This is the Yitzer HaTov. Okay, so this is the intellect. Okay, and then Lama Nikra Yeled. Why does he say youth? Because She'enu Bal Adam Ad Yoga Moshana. Because he only arises at in the person's 13th, or he's using a male, right? In his 13th year. Okay, Miskein. Why is he called poor? She'en ha'ivarim shomin lo kamo liyetzer hara. The limbs don't obey him like they do with the Yetzer Hara. So he's poor in the sense of like being on a lower rung of society. Okay. Chacham, wise, shemaskil es adam b'derech tova. It intelligently guides a person on the good path. Okay, that takes care of that. Okay, then we have mimelech zachin uksil, the evil, foolish king. Yetzer Hara. This is the Yetzer Hara. Shehu shalit al kol ha'ivarim. So king is the fact that he rules over all the limbs. Zakein, old, means that Mishash and Nolad Havlad hu nasimbo. He's been there from birth. And Xil is foolish. Shematehu l'derech ra. That he leads him astray on the bad path. Okay, so this is the mashal in Koheles that the Meiri uses in all of his derech nistar interpretations. Okay, so let's read his derech nistar. We'll just put this here so we can see it. Let's put this on this side. Okay, so what does the Meiri say? He says derech nistar, the esoteric approach, Ramaz al hashpa'as chachmas l'zulaso. This alludes to a person influencing others with his wisdom. Ad sheyolid banim ubnei banim b'demuso kitzalmo. To the point where he I don't want to say gives birth. He begets children and grandchildren who have his in his likeness like his Selim Elohim. Okay. Kama Amar, as it is stated, Ruchi asher alecha udvar asher samti b'ficha lo yamush mipika mipi zarcha mitav yad olam. My spirit and which is upon you, udvarai, and my word. I assume this is Hashem talking. My word, which I placed in your mouth, lo yamushu, will not depart from your mouth, umipi zaracha, nor from the mouth of your offspring, umipi zaracha, nor from the mouth of your offspring's offspring. Okay, so the kara chelchote. Actually, let's stop here for a second here. Okay, so What is he, in your own words, what is he saying? Or do you have an example of this? And you know what? I'm going to move the pasuk down here just so we can see it. Yeah, Ayala?
Be like Avram Avinu, who like passed down his inheritance of like his ideology of ideas and
Okay,
wisdom to
good.
his
Right.
generations.
Yeah. In fact, I think someone actually quotes Avram Avinu as the example of this. Okay. So that's a good example. I was thinking of a more local example. Okay. Which is that you guys are all the Selim Elohim grandchildren of Rabbi Moskowitz, right? Because Rabbi Moskowitz taught this whole approach in Mishlei to me, and then I'm teaching it to you. And so because Rabbi Moskowitz made the decision to share his chachma, then it gave rise to people who are able to think about these ideas and be formed by those ideas, just like him. And then I am, teaching the derech, and then you're getting it, and then you're teaching it to other people, and it's just going to keep on going, God willing. Okay, fine. Okay, so then he goes on, and he says something which I don't understand. V'kara chelchote tainos hacholkim umofse kazvehem. So he says what is referred to as the wealth of the sinner is the arguments of those who oppose, they oppose Torah, umofse kazvehem, and their false proofs. Nacharu ba'achehem katan. That is a phrase from Shir Shirim, which I am not familiar with. Let me just check it out. Shir Hashirim 1, what does it say, 1.5 or 1.6? 1.6. Al tiruni shani shacharchor sheshazavasni hashamesh. That's my favorite hard to say word in the Tanakh. Al tiruni shani shacharchor sheshazavasni hashamesh. Bnei imi nicharubi. That's the phrase. The sons of my mother were angry with me, like chara'af, I guess. Yeah. Okay. So what does he say? Bnei nicharu ba'acheha makatan. Angering their younger brother. Okay, that's a metaphor that apparently we're supposed to understand. The Amar shu tzafon l'tadik. Oh, this is interesting. And he's saying that these false proofs and arguments are hidden away for the tzaddik. Rotlomar, in other words, hayelad amiskein lahachniam tachtav. They are hidden away for the poor youth to subdue them under him. Al derech Amram, as Chazal say in Bava Basra, umalcha letzadim lasilavo, that the I think this is the flesh of the Leviathan will be salted for the tzaddikim, like salted meaning like preserved, for the tzaddikim in the future. Okay, so I understand some of this. Okay, so the first this, I think this first part we got good. Okay, right, is that if you so again, derech nistar is the way Meiri interprets it when he takes the main idea but applies it to the inner life of the soul and perfection of ideas instead of like material success, right? So our idea that we said about material success is that the tzaddik will preserve wealth and teach people how to relate to it properly. So the tzaddik, in terms of the way that he relates to his chachma, will preserve the chachma and teach people how to relate to it properly to the point where he will pass it on and create, people who are following in his intellectual footsteps. Okay, so that part is clear. Okay, but then the wealth of the sinner, meaning all of his false proofs and arguments, are hidden away for the tzaddik, which means that they're like waiting to be subdued by the Yetzer HaTov. That's the part I don't know what he's saying. Yeah, Isaiah? I can barely hear you. I don't know if you're far away from your mic or your computer. I don't know if you could hear me saying that.
Maybe what this means is that like a bad idea of a rasha can be sometimes used as like a counterpoint when you're thinking about good ideas.
Okay, that's good. All right, that's a good idea, right? So good example of this is I don't know, one of the better examples of this is the Mor Nevuchim. Okay, so what was the this is a question for anyone. What was the main cause, I guess, in intellectual philosophy that was around at the Rambam's time? What was the main intellectual cause that gave rise to him writing the Moreh Nevuchim? Like the big pitfall that people were falling into? Anyone know? So people were the whole Moreh Nevuchim has 3 parts. Okay, the whole second part is devoted to Aristotle. Okay, that people were in doubt because Aristotle made really good arguments for the eternity of the universe. Okay, and whereas we hold that the universe was created yesh me'ayin, out of nothing, right? So the method the Rambam used was very interesting because he not the entire method of addressing Aristotle, but one of the things he does is he basically says that, like, let me think how to say this. If you gave someone the homework assignment of writing Moreh Nevuchim against an Aristotle, they might first try to prove. This is too complicated of an example. I don't want to give it. Strike that. Let's think of another example. Did you have an example in mind, Isaiah, by the way?
No.
Okay, so I'll use a contemporary example, right? Which is that Ayala's dad, Rabbi Dr. Eli Fader, and Rabbi Zimmer have been doing this project called Physics to God, where they are teaching, writing, recording a proof of God from the universe. Okay. But one of the things that they're doing, and one of the things that I think kicked it off, is that the competing theory for how the universe came to be is this thing called multiverse theory. But what they do is they take all the points that multiverse theorists are saying, and they show their flaws in those points and show how, like, the only rational option is to say that God exists. And that multiverse is not an adequate answer. So in other words, that what the multiverse people are doing is they're trying to, like, they're trying to present a proof against God, and the defenders of the Torah's truth are using those very points to strengthen and to be the basis of, like, a proof of God's existence. Yeah, Isaiah?
I think another example is actually Mishlei, like all the bad ideas that the bad people have in how to live life, sort of. The author of Mishlei, like the inspiration in how to write and how to have good ideas, because you have not the bad ideas.
Yeah, that's a great example, and even better example, only because he does it more militantly, is Koheles, because Koheles really is about happiness. But the approach he takes is showing all the paths that other people think are going to bring them happiness, and show how they're not going to lead to happiness. Yeah. Okay, good. All right, I think these are good ideas. Yeah, Ayala?
Are you able to just elaborate on how this relates to the first half in the, like, derech nistar, like how the 2 halves are related here?
Right. So by the way, I do think that this confirms that he's relating to the tov and the tzaddik as the same person. Okay, like, I don't think there's 3 people here, right? So the tzaddik, in terms of in the world of intellect, is going to do 2 things. He's going to build up the next generation by training them in his chachma, and then he's going to counter all of the false proofs and arguments as using them as opportunities to reinforce the truth. So these are like the 2 ways that he is ensuring that the perfection of ideas that he has are passed on, by positively passing them on, and then by not just clearing away the obstacles, but by taking those obstacles and making them into material to use for the for the perpetuation of truth. So it is about how to pass on truth. Yeah.
And then also you can say that the chote, just like in the other explanation or whatever, is like is relating to it improperly, and then it ends up, like, being completely lost, his efforts. And so same here.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it. Yeah. I think I quoted this recently, but the Marcus Aurelius' fire analogy, not Rambam's fire analogy, and not Bruce Lee's water analogy, But Marcus Aurelius in Meditations 4:1, the ruling power within, meaning the part of you that can have free will, when it is in accordance with nature, so confronts what comes to pass as always to adapt itself readily to that which is and that which is presented to it. This is because it requires no definite material. Rather, it moves towards its purpose with reservation and then makes the opposition which encounters it into material for itself. That's exactly what the Meiri was saying. He takes the opposition which it encounters, makes it into material for itself. It is like a fire when it masters what falls into it, whereby a little flame would have been put out, but a bright fire quickly appropriates to itself the matter which is heaped upon it and consumes it and rises higher by means of that very material. So the tzaddik, when he's confronted with false arguments and proofs, does not shy away, does not merely defend. He takes those arguments and uses it into material to further the fire of truth. That's the best move we can do. Okay, so let's just summarize what we have here. So we have, I think we ended up with 3 ideas, okay? And there's like a Venn diagram-ish on it. Okay, so we've got Isaiah's and Ariel's idea, which has to do with 3 ways to relate to your money. One is as a chote who is careless and foolish, and as we saw from the meforshim, doesn't necessarily even bequeath it to his kids, certainly not his grandkids. Then you got the person who's good with money, or relates to money properly in a chacham way and uses it for himself and for his own family and his own legacy. Then you have the tzaddik who is going to use it for the good of the system as a whole. And the question we had is, why is it lopsided? Because I still have a good answer to that question. Okay, fine. All right. Then we had Rivki's intuition, which I think melded with my idea based on the Meiri and the Rabbeinu Yonah, which is that it's really talking about how to properly relate to money. And there's 2 people in the pasuk. The tzaddik relates to money properly in terms of mishleic decision-making with it, and also Kohelet's relationship with money, meaning he's not just gathering for the sake of gathering, he's gathering to use for practical enjoyment / needs, and also for justice, for righteousness. So he's going to keep the money in, going, because losing it would be bad for tzedek, and he's going to teach his kids how to relate to it, so it'll pass itself on. But the chote is the other guy who is defined as someone who's just clamoring to get more. He's not going to enjoy it. He's certainly not going to use it for justice, and it's not even going to go to his kids. Either he's going to squander it, or have infighting in terms of the will, or even if it does go to his kids, he's not training his kids in how to relate to it properly. So it's not going to actually be enjoyed. And what's going to end up happening to it? Well, eventually it's, the money is finite. It's going to, meaning it has to be somewhere in the system. And the people who are really like using it are the tzaddik who are able to relate to it properly, and the tzaddik's family. Then our third idea was the esoteric idea, the derech nistar, which is about not money management, but chachma management. What should you do with your chachma? You should spread it to other people and teach them how to relate to it and manage it, okay, properly. That will keep it going beyond you, because you have a finite existence. And you should not only defend against it defend against the counter arguments, the false proofs, but also utilize those as material for you to strengthen the chachma, which will ensure its longevity even more. Okay, nice pasuk. Was not sure we were going to get anything out of that, so I'm glad it worked out. Okay, so what do we have now? We have, where are we here? 2 more psukim? Yeah. This is Eov. Hold on. We have in chapter 13. No, we have 3 more psukim. Okay. Yeah, looking forward to it. Okay, Bli Neder next week should be fine. Yeah, next week should be fine. Okay, have a good night, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Thank
Alright,
you.
Shneimos.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Thank you.
Rabbi Shneimos.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I had another thing about Ish Tov.
Yeah.
So I have to throw in a Rust plug over here, but
Okay.
like Ploni Almoni was, I think his name was Tov.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, I think someone says that.
Really? Okay, that's funny.
Yeah. All right, just wanted to share that.
Okay, thanks. Nice tidbit. Okay.
All right,
Have a
bye.
good night. Bye.